All right, we are going to talk about the real number system today, and I want to make the point that any number that you know so far is a real number. So first thing we're going to say is every single number is a real number. But that's not going to be true as you continue on into math. There is another number system that you'll be learning about later. But for right now, every number that you know is a real number. All right, so what we're going to do is just kind of make a chart or a graphic, I guess, to help you with the real number system and then what kind of numbers would go into each category. So first up, I'm going to start with a giant rectangle here. And this giant rectangle is going to represent the real numbers. So in this rectangle are the real numbers. So let's see, maybe I'll write it down below. So these are all of the real numbers. So again, there are numbers that are actually called imaginary numbers, and you'll be learning about those later. So right now, everything that you know is real number. All right, inside of the real number system, there are two different types of numbers. So we're gonna put like, whoa, yikes, that was terrible. We're gonna say about half of them. Those are called rational numbers. And then the other half are irrational numbers. Okay, so these are irrational numbers. All right, so every number is either rational or irrational, okay? So technically speaking, there shouldn't be any extra space around in here, but just to make sure that you can see which one is which. So in the rational category are all of the numbers that you guys have used. Fractions, decimals, whole numbers, positive, negative, integers, mixed numbers. Those are all rational numbers. What's going to be new to you are the irrational numbers. Now, there are two major types of irrational numbers. One of them you've probably been introduced to pi, okay? So we'll just write that. Pi is always irrational. The other thing that's going to be irrational is when you have a square root that is not a perfect square. Okay? So, over here in the rational part, we have our fractions, decimals, we have our integers, which are the whole numbers. These are the positive and negative whole numbers. And then the other thing that we have are, let's see, I didn't leave a lot of good space. Over here are the square roots of perfect squares. So the reason why we're talking about this right now is obviously because we're working with square roots. So if the number is the square root of one of our perfect squares that we have on the list, that's going to fall in the rational category. If it's not a perfect square and we're trying to take the square root, that's going to land in the irrational category. All right, so just a couple of examples. So I'm going to come down here and make a little chart. So let's see if we can just sketch ourselves pretty big. I'm going to go all the way across the paper here. And let me zoom out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so we're going to put the number that we're doing right here. And then we're going to determine if it's real, if it's rational, or is it irrational? And then we're going to decide if it is an integer or we'll say not an integer. All right. So if you need to pause the video so you can get the chart set up, please do, so that you can get the names of each column going across. All right, so let's say the number is -7. Okay, so first off, let's think about where would -7 fall in this little chart up here. Well, -7 is going to fall right over here. So, is it real? Yes. Is it rational? Yes. Is it irrational? No, it's not. So we can either skip it or put an X. And is it an integer? Well, an integer is a positive or negative whole number. So the answer for that is yes. So then since it's an integer, we know it's not an integer. So the number -7 is a rational real number that is also an integer. All right. How about, let's do the square root of 15. Okay. So now let's think about which category does this fit into. So the question is the square root of 15 perfect or is it not perfect? So if you remember, we made our list of perfect squares the other day. So if you need to get that back out, let me grab that so I can show you. So we made our list of perfect squares. So, is the square root of 15 on our perfect square list? Well, the answer is no, it's not. So, the square root of 15 would be right over here because it's not a perfect square. So, if it's here, is it a real number? Yes. Is it rational? No. Is it irrational? Yes. And then we know it's not going to be one of those because those are over here. All right. Let's try one more. Let's say, how about the square root of 36? Okay, well, let's look. Where is it going to fall? Because it's in this box. So we know it's real. But is the square root of 36 here or is the square root of 36 here? Well, is the square root of 36 a perfect square? Well, let's think about it. I know what the square root of 36 is. So since I know that the square root of 36 is going to be positive or -6, then yeah, that one's going to be a perfect square. So the square root of 36 is on our list, which means that the square root of 36 is in this box right here. All right, so let's check this out. Is it real? Yes, because all of them are real. Is it rational or irrational? Well, it's over here, so it's rational. It's not irrational. All right, well, let's think about it. The square root of 36 is positive or -6. So that's an integer. All right, let's do one more, even though I said that was our last one, because I thought of another one I want to do. Let's say we have the fraction 1/2. Okay, so now we have to figure out which box would the number 1/2 go into? Is it going to go over here or is it going to go over here? Well, 1/2 is a fraction, so that means it's in this box right here. All right. Is it real? Yes, because they're all real. Is it rational or irrational? It's rational. All right. Is 1/2 an integer? No, it's not. It's a fraction. So it is not an integer. All right, that's what we're going to be doing. So as you can see, there's not really math involved in this. It's more of just looking at a number, deciding which category it falls into, and then checking off the right box, or maybe choosing from a list of numbers. But just to remind you, everything that we're going to be dealing with is real. And then you have to decide it's either one or the other. It can't be in both. So it's either rational or irrational, and it all depends on what number you have.